Folks, welcome in. This is Jeff Falk, got Dan Reed, and I don't have to introduce this man sitting between us, legendary high school college coach, Coach Rick Insell. We're kind of using this as a kickoff to what we hope is our high school basketball shows throughout the season. And before we get to the questions, Coach, I want to run just a few of these numbers, because when you talk about the program that you built here, I mean, these are 28 years, record of 775 wins, 148 losses, which averages out to 28-5 every year. 23 district championships, 16 regional championships, 15 times in the state championship game, 10 times state champion, 6 Miss Basketball Award winners, 15 high school All-Americans, 57 scholarship recipients. Your lowest cumulative GPA for your team in all of those years was a 3.4. You have a high school team that gets a White House visit. Your teams were honored by the United States Senate, United States House of Representatives, the Tennessee State Senate, the Tennessee State House of Representatives, and you've been honored by 2 Tennessee governors and in countless basketball Hall of Fames. So, first of all, it's a privilege for us, for you to come over and do this interview.
Thank you, guys.
Decent career. Decent career.
Not a bad resume.
Wow.
Coach, and I've always said this, if I could sit down and talk to you, the one question that I would ask you, was it harder to build this program to what you got it to, or is it harder to maintain it once you have it built?
Well, Tony was asking me this morning on the way over. Tony's my media relations guy, and probably works harder in our program at Middle Tennessee than anybody that I know of besides our staff, and he's part of our staff. But how did it happen? And really, we just set a goal every year to win state championship from the very first day. I mean, even in 1977, I can still remember the first practice here, first tryout, and we had like 80 young ladies that were trying out for the basketball team. And I had to cut that down to 30 and then eventually cut it down to 17 or 18 and eventually get it down to, I think I might have kept 15 kids. And when we sat down with those 15 kids, we talked about winning the state championship, and they kind of looked at me and thought, we weren't very good last year. And I said, well, we just talked. And I'll tell you the story. We drove up to scrimmage Warren County, and Warren County was ranked #1 in the state. I didn't know a whole lot about girls basketball. I knew the good coaches, Campbell, Brandon, Bobby Hale was at Warren County, Harry Gill was at Smyrna. You didn't have a lot of things going on in the Murfreesboro area then. And and Larry Joe Emmons was at Mount Juliet, so I called those people the first year I was here, and I asked them, let's scrimmage, let's get together. They were not on our schedule. And so Bobby Hale said, okay. So I remember going up to Warren County, and we scrimmaged them there. They had probably 200 people in the gym because they were ranked #1 state at that time. They were going to be, because they were that good. And they beat us like 70-something to 20-something. And I walked over to Coach Hale and I said, let's play another game, because I don't think you're 50 points better than us. And his response was, well, we'll have another scrimmage, but I'm going to play our B team against you. I said, no, I don't want to play your B team. I didn't drive up here with my players to play your B team. I drove up here to play your best players. And he said, well, if you want it again, we'll give it to you. So we played a game, and they hit a shot at the buzzer to beat us 1 point. And I remember, this is not the lobby that we had then, the little lobby. When we came back up and we sat down in that lobby, and I said, we're not going to forget this scrimmage, because we're going to have to play them to get into the state tournament. So we were playing Warren County at Tullahoma in the region finals, and Jet Rippey hit a shot, tipped a shot in at the buzzer to beat Warren County. They were undefeated then. So at that point, I knew we got beat in the sub-state that year, I think, by McMinn Central, I believe. But I knew right then, this was a special place, because the people were there, the families that were that were part of what we were doing were with us, and I knew it was a special place. And then Tullahoma came and called him. Tullahoma called him. Tommy Whitaker was the AD there. He's passed away now at Tullahoma, and he said, "Look, I'm getting out." He was the girls' coach there, and he said, "I want to hire you." Well, back then you had to get tenure. You had to get hired back in the third year before you were guaranteed a job. And the rumor was that they were going to get rid of me, and so I went to Mike Bone and I said, "Hey, Tommy Whitaker has offered me a job at Tullahoma, about a $12,000 raise at that time." And then when you're broke, and I was broke, and with kids and living over there, to where you were at, Dan.
Right.
And Mike said, "We're not getting rid of you. You're staying." And we won the district that year, won the region that year, the first year, and then we came back, won the district and region again the next year, and got beat sub-state again, and then won the district, lost the region right here to Lebanon, and then won the sub-state and got to the state in 1980 for the first time. So I kind of knew right then it was going to be special.
Coach, I was a sophomore in 1980, and I can remember us getting to go during the day for that state game, and that was a big deal at the time. And you got Daphne Newsom and Myra Fishback, Amy Davis, and that bunch, Deborah Stone, and those. And you kind of got the feeling this is something that's going to keep going, because we had enough younger kids, or we felt like as students, there's enough underclassmen here that are really good. This thing could, and I don't know that anybody ever saw it.
That was three pretty good forwards. Amy's just got through with her cancer treatment. She lives in Phoenix, and my wife touches base with her about once every 2 weeks. And then I've still got a letter that I go to that I got back from Myra after she graduated. She said, "Coach, basically she regretted not being coachable, because she was better than she really thought she was, and we were trying to get her to be more authoritative underneath the basket." And we ended up losing to Pearl Cone before in the first round of state. They went on and won the next game by 30 and the next game by 30. So we were that close then in 1980, and that was the third year, I think. Maybe it's the third year, I believe. And winning the state championship, I felt like we had a pretty good team. Those kids, they bought in, but we practiced all the time. Thank God TSSAA didn't. We practiced all the time.
Right.
If you came up and there was paper on the windows of the gym, we was in here doing something.
Yeah, cleaning or something.
But then Mike Bone kind of got, him and Ronnie Carter were very close friends, and Ronnie said, "Mike, you're going to have to take a hold of your coach."
I can remember as a freshman, the freshman basketball girls practiced during the day, and right after their practice, we had study hall, and some of those girls would come in, and I'm telling you, it was like they were crawling to get in class, and they couldn't take it. Some of them, seriously, they couldn't. Some of them couldn't take it, and they were like, "Look, this is not for me." But you did have to buy. You had to buy in if you were going to be that.
What we did, Jeff, we just went, and I've told you this several times. We spent a lot of bus trips together talking about the Shelbyville days and plane trips together. But my junior pro coaches were running what Eaglettes ran.
Yes, sir.
On Saturday mornings, I'd make a walkthrough about every Saturday through junior pro, just touch base with those parents. You pretty much knew who the kids you had coming that were going to develop.
Right.
And then we started AAU. I happened to run into Bill Tips. Good Lord's blessed me with allowing me to touch base with people that were good people that had a passion for women's basketball. Bill Tips over at Tullahoma and Montlow, worked at Montlow for years, got me involved in AAU. And when we got through with junior pro, we started working those young ladies for AAU. And you got to understand now, back then Shelbyville didn't have their other sports. They didn't have soccer.
Right.
They didn't have softball.
Right.
They didn't have volleyball.
Right.
You had track, and you had women's basketball. That's it. So if you were a female athlete, that's really your only two options that you had then. And now the other schools around the mid-state had some of those sports, but we didn't. And so we started working our kids, getting them ready for AAU, and we did the same thing. I had a group in town, it's probably 15 or 20 guys, and females and males that worked their kids or other people's kids, and we would try to do the same thing we're doing here. And then we eventually got into you had Liberty and then you had Harris. I had two great feeder schools. The county kids and the city kids would come together, and then we had a travel team that we brought the best of them, and we didn't cut anybody. That's one of the things we never did. We never cut anybody. We kept everybody. And then we brought the travel team, put a travel team together with the best ones, which kind of gave them an advantage. But every now and then you'd have one slip through, like a Missy Donaldson. I never will forget Jerry and Aaron. And Aaron West came to me one night and said, "Hey, the best junior high kid you got is down there working out behind Thomas School every afternoon after school." And I kind of laughed at them. They came back again. Jerry came back again and said, "Coach," because you had guys like that in the community that just kept me in touch with everybody, and said, "Coach, I'm telling you, the best kid you got in your basketball program is down there working out at Thomas School." And I said, "Well, why is she not playing at Harris? She got cut." "Well, if she's the best, why did she get cut?" "Well, you just need to take a trip down there." So one afternoon I rolled up, it was nearly dark, and I could hear the basketball, and I walked there, and this little bitty thing, it wasn't just, could walk under this table, but God, she was talented.
Yes, sir.
And gritty, goodness gracious alive. And, ended up coming and being the point guard here, and I can't remember, I guess it was the first state championship.
86.
It was the first state championship. She was the point guard on that state championship. And ended up getting a full scholarship to David Lipscomb, and just had a great career there, set records in there for them. And then, of course, she's coaching now at East in Nashville. So, it was always someone in the community that kept us in touch with what was going on.
Coach, I jotted these down, and
All
I
right, go
wrote
ahead.
them down. But to build a program instead of just having a team, and this is what I put down: community support, administration on your side, good assistant coaches, great feeder program, great AAU program, and then the academic side. And that's pretty much, you've touched on most of that,
There's a story on that academic. We had won the state championship in '86. We were back in '87, got beat by Oak Ridge. They held the ball on us, and then they got beat by Gallatin the next night. We had beaten Gallatin like maybe 30 in a scrimmage earlier that year, so I knew that we had a chance to win again. That was Moorhead, Mitchell, and Jennings, or Moorhead and Mitchell, and it wasn't Jennings. Jennings had graduated, but Moorhead and Mitchell during that span. Beth Bobo, Trish Lewis. There's a great team. Tracy Butler, which is now one of your guidance counselors here at school. That was a great team, and they held the ball on us and beat us. Well, we came back in '88. We were in the finals again in '88. But in '88, I think it was '88, the TSSAA come up with this academic achievement award, because they said the Shelbyvilles of the world, the Mount Juliets, the Bradley counties, they're always getting here, and some of these teams out in the state that maybe can't compete like the Shelbyvilles and the Mount Juliets and the Bradleys, that'll give them a chance to compete academically.
Right.
So I went to Miss Rittenberry and told her what my plan was, and that's all you had to do. That highly motivated her. And so I think the next year, we got the highest award that could be given by the TSSAA, and I think our GPA might have been somewhere around 3.8. And because of that, I'm sitting at the boys' state, and I'd always go down to the boys' state and sit around, and then I received a call, and it was from Bo Melson. No, it was from Mike Bone. Then Bo Melson called me shortly after that, and Mike said, "Hey, the President of the United States his office just called." And you can imagine, I'm and I'm sitting down there at the gym at Murphy Center, and Mike's on. I'm thinking he's just BSing me, because I had that happen a lot. We were so close to everybody around. And I said, "Yeah, sure, Mike, I know the President wants us to come." He said, "No, I'm not kidding you. The President wants us to come to the White House." And I said, "You're kidding." No. But not only did we win the state and the national championship, but we were also, the academic success that we had was what they brought us in for. And so then it was I think Jim Cooper and Don Sundquist and 2 or 3 others got in behind it. And when that brought us into Washington, D.C. Wendell Agnew was big in this community, helping with all of that. And I think he was with me that night. And then shortly after that, Bo Melson called, and it became huge news in the state. We were on the front page of the Tennessean, and that didn't hurt us any, with all that taking place. But and we just kind of built our academic success off of that, because it really was because of what the TSSAA, the statement they had made, and we just felt like that it was putting a negative on our students here at Shelbyville Central High School.
Well, Coach, one thing you mentioned earlier, Coach Bone, and I read the book, and most Shep people did, The Only Eaglets Understand. Could you tell us just a few minutes about that day you walked in his office to get the job from Woodbury to come over here?
Well,
and how that went?
The real gist of the story was that I was at Vanderbilt. My son Tom was in Vanderbilt Hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to live or die. He was maybe 5 or 6 months old, maybe it wasn't even that. And so the Nashville Banner, then I saw there was a position open at Shelbyville to coach men's basketball. And so I applied for that position, and I made a call to the superintendent in Mike Bone's office. I don't know how many times. I couldn't get him calling me back.
Really?
Couldn't get him calling me back. So I didn't get it. I forgot who Jim Drew. They gave the position to Jim Drew. So then, I'm still in school now. I'm still at middle. I went back to middle to finish my education, and I've been coaching over at Westside at Cannon County. And so then, and Mike don't like me to tell this story like this because it kind of puts him in a bad light. But then I heard that Jim Drew wanted an assistant coach. He needed an assistant coach. And I knew that Jim Drew had played for Jimmy Earl, and I had just taken a class with Jimmy Earl. And I sat on the front row, and Coach Earl and myself after class, I would ask him question after question after question after question. And now we're the closest of friends. But anyway, when I came back, he said, "What do you want?" I came back that one afternoon, and I said, I understand that Jim Drew's here at your basketball camp, and I need to meet him because I understand he needs an assistant coach." And Coach Earl said he does need an assistant coach. So he walked me over to the grill, and if you can believe that, I was a nobody from Woodbury, and he took his time, walked me over to the grill, and introduced me to Jim Drew. Jim Drew called Mike Bone and set me up an interview with Mike Bone. Never said anything about coaching girls basketball. And so I was supposed to have been over here to meet Mike Bone at 9 o'clock one morning to interview with him for the assistant boys job. Well, I got here about 8:30 or 8:15, and I didn't know Mike Bone. I didn't know anybody at Shelbyville. I didn't know the secretaries. I can't even remember Lane Reed hadn't come on board then, but I know that this guy walked out of that principal's office probably 40 times past me and wouldn't look at me. See, this was a brand new school.
Right.
Nobody had ever taught in this school. Nobody had ever played ball in this gym. This is a brand new school. So Mike, this was his first principalship.
Right.
And he's a young guy too. And so he was doing his job. He was going to check on, how Mike, all of us know how Mike is. Mike, he was the principal, the assistant principal, the baseball coach, men's basketball, women's basketball, the custodian, the cafeteria. I mean, he's going to have something to do with everything there. He's going to make sure everything's done right. And that's, it's hard to get people like that anymore. But finally, about maybe 11:15, I'd been there nearly 2 hours. The secretary said, "Mr. Bone will see you."
Right.
So I go into Mr. Bone's office and sit down. And he had a legal pad that he had in his bottom right-hand drawer that he opened up. He asked me about maybe 2 minutes worth of questions. He folded that legal pad up and put it back in his drawer, and he said, "Look, I'll be getting in touch with you. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll get back in touch with you." I knew that that meant I didn't have the job.
Right.
I knew that right then. Again, I guess people call it a pivot point in your life, and that was a pivot point because I didn't have enough education or enough know-how or enough dealing with people at that point in my career to know to say what I was about to say. And at this point, I said to Mr. Bone, I said, you know, Mr. Bone, I'd like to have 2 more minutes of your time.
Right.
And there's not a doubt in my mind that you've got, in the stack of resumes that you've got on your desk, you got some people in there that are more qualified to be a coach here at Shelbyville Central High School than me. There's no doubt in my mind that you got people in there that's got experience from other schools that would like to be here with you. But let me tell you what you hadn't got. You hadn't got anybody in there that's going to work harder than Rick Insell. That you hadn't got.
Right.
And you hadn't got anybody in there that's going to be more loyal to Shelbyville Central High School and Bedford County than Rick Insell.
Right.
And you got to decide what you want. Well, he sat there and looked at me. It seemed like 20 minutes, but it was probably a minute. I thought, well, I've blown it. And he reached down, got that pad back out, opened it back up, and he started talking to me about different parts of basketball, about this community, about the school system, what his goals were, wanted to know what my goals were. Then he reached in his drawer, started fiddling with a key ring, pulled off about 2 or 3 keys, reached over there and handed them to me and said, follow me. We walked to one of the classrooms, got the books, follow me. We came over to the gym. He said, this is your office. And he hired me. And he tells me this story that he went home that night and told Frida, said, I don't know why I hired this guy. Because he had long hair and he couldn't look up over my desk. But if he can do what he says he can do,
You got something.
we've got something.
But you got hired as a girls coach when you came.
Well,
to
he
the
didn't
boys.
tell me that until we got to the end of the interview. And at the end of the interview, he said, hey, there's one other thing I think you need to know. You're going to have to be the head girls coach.
Girls coach. And
so
that's
I
not full court at that time.
Well, no, it's not. It's 6-on-6.
Right.
And when you're broke, you need a paycheck.
Don't
Right.
matter.
It didn't matter. I had to coach girls. Then, you know, I asked Mr. Bone to allow me to coach girls full time because I saw right quick. We had some great boys teams through that period. Jim Drew had some good. They went to the sub-state. Matter of fact, I think the sub-state they played Reggie White. He was at Chattanooga Howard right here. I remember Reggie White walking through. I was up in the auxiliary gym watching him. God, he was mammoth.
You know, man.
And we had a pretty good team, and they beat us barely, but he was mammoth. And he had another guy on that team that went to Miami that was the MVP of the Sugar Bowl or something. That was on the same high school team that played football at Miami, and of course Reggie went to Tennessee. So they not too bad a football team in high school.
Pretty good bunch.
And that started 1977, began your career here. And refresh my memory, I know, but how many seasons before you went 5-on-5?
Went 505 1980.
Okay, so that was the year you went to state tournament that first time.
1980. Matter of fact, Warren County won the last. Riverdale was undefeated in '79. Got beat in the finals. They were the same region. Got beat in the finals. Warren County beat Riverdale.
Wow.
In the finals of the state, 1979.
I got a question that you can't answer, but I've always wanted to ask you this. Because there's no way to answer it, but just all those teams, and man, we could list players, and I made it a point not to start listing them because you're going to leave out one of the greats. We've already mentioned my favorite of all time, though. Angela Moorhead was the toughest basketball player I ever watched in any sport. But out of all those games, all the wins, losses, whatever, there's got to be some memory that sticks out in this gym in one of those years, whether it's Christ the King night that we all know about, but is there a game you just, not that was a better team than the other ones, but is there just a game that you just constantly are always remembering happened in this gym?
I would say that 1984 was probably one of the greatest games that's ever been played in this gym. This is Eagle Boulevard right out here. They were backed all the way up from Eagle Boulevard where you turn up at the end of the street.
I got you.
Parking.
Really?
There was no parking here. You could walk from car to car all the way up to the end of the street and it turned towards Madison Street, I guess.
Wow.
And that was, we were playing Lebanon. We had played Lebanon at their place and lost by 3 or 4. You had Patsy Smith, Susan Dial, Angela Moorhead, Jill Mitchell on that, and Jana Jennings on that team. Pretty good basketball team. Might make a pretty good college team right now. 'Cause if you look, Mitchell was 6'3", Moorhead was about 5'11", but unstoppable.
Absolutely.
Patsy Smith was 6'1", signed with Vanderbilt. Mitchell signed with Georgia. Moorhead could have signed with anybody in the country. Went to Tennessee Tech. Jana went to UAB, and then I think Susan played too somewhere. But Susan was the one that kept them all together.
Right.
And she was a point guard, and she was nearly 6 foot. She was 5'11".
Right.
So wasn't real fast, but just handled the ball smart, got the ball whoever needed it. But Lebanon they were number 1 in the state. They beat us at their place, I don't know, 8 or 9 points. We played here, and we were it was nip and tuck the whole game. They ended up beating us 2 or 3 points here, and then we had to meet. We got beat, and I never will forget Campbell Brandon calling me, and he said, "Hey, you go into our bracket." Said, "If you lose, you go into our. You better. If you go into our bracket if you lose."
Right.
So you might want to make. I'd lost to I think it was Giles County. They were in AAA then, and it put us in the losers bracket. So if I went third, I believe, I had to play Campbell. I believe that's the way it was.
I got you.
At Lebanon again
Right.
in the semifinal game.
Of the region.
And he said, if you lose that game, you'll go opposite, and then you'll be opposite of some way. And I said, Campbell, you need to worry about
Right,
where you're at,
right.
because we don't at Shelbyville we don't go into a game to lose. We're going into a game to win.
Right.
So we're going to let the chips fall where they. You got to worry about coming back to the grill
That's
and
right.
playing the Eaglettes against you. That's what better be on your mind.
Right.
And he had the number 1 team in the state, probably one of the best teams he ever had. And we played the 5 o'clock game right here. And they was probably 8 deep around the rail, around the floor. They were on the tops up there. And I can remember Patsy Smith took the shot at the elbow, the left elbow. And it was we held the ball. We were 1 down. And we had maybe a minute to go. And I decided to hold the ball because they were so good offensively. I knew if we scored, that they'd score again.
Right.
So I said, "Heck, we're gonna take the last shot."
All right.
And so we held it down, and with about 8 or 9 seconds to go, Patsy goes to the elbow. We get her the ball. Susan does, and she throws it up, and it rims. And they had a big kid playing for them, so a Moore kid that I think went to Tennessee, got a scholarship in Tennessee. She's about 6'4". She went up the rebound, and it is barely come by her hand. And Jill Mitchell, you didn't see this then, come through the lane off the putback and tipped it up over the top of her, and it went in when the buzzer said it. Bo got a picture of it, and we upset him, and I think everybody in the gym came on the floor. It was unreal. I mean, it just came on the floor. So the next night we got to play Franklin County. They moved the finals to Middle. Didn't play it here.
Really?
Moved the finals to Middle Tennessee. And we beat Franklin County over there on a last second shot.
Wow.
So now we got to go to the sub-state, and I can't remember who we played in the sub-state that year, but we ended up winning it, I think, in overtime. And then we got to play Oak Ridge the first round of the state, and we end up winning it by 1 or 2 points. And then the next game we've got to play, I can't remember, but we ended up maybe winning it just 1 or 2 points. Now we're in the finals playing Chattanooga Brainerd and Venus Lacey. Venus Lacey went on and played, in the Olympics and all that.
Right.
I mean, she was a horse, still, just a horse. And we lost that game in overtime in the finals of state. So we went through a week of basketball where the Eaglettes either played overtime games or won by 1 or 2 points or last second shots.
Right.
And of course, you can imagine what it did to your crowd, to your community. I mean, everybody just.
Hey, I've said forever on our shows we're talking about Bedford County, and man, I don't think people realize the impact the Eaglettes made those days on the just the overall economy of Shelbyville, Tennessee. in Bedford County, how big it was to come to an Eaglette game. I came, of course, I'm from Unionville, but in '89 they had those night of champions, and our boys played Ezel Harding, and your girls played. I don't remember who you played. I know the boys played Memphis Melrose. It might have been the night you played Memphis Melrose as well. But that was my first experience walking in this gym. And of course, you got Misty and that bunch in '89, and you want to stay with that. Boy, that was a great team too. But I had never seen so many people in one gym, especially high school, to see those games. Those night of champions things were big deals too. You had here.
Well, we got beat in '85 by Melrose, and I knew they were going to have the best team in the state. They had everybody back.
Right.
So they changed coaches. Robert Newman was a coach at that time, and he went to work for UPS, or FedEx, went to work for FedEx down in Memphis. And he told the coach coming in, he said, whatever you do, I can promise you that Shelbyville will be calling. I want you to come to Shelbyville to play. Whatever you do, do not go to Shelbyville, because you're not going to win.
Right.
And Robert's told me this story many times. So I called him. I didn't know Robert had told him that. And I said, hey, we're having a night of champions. We'd like to have you come up and play. And we're gonna take care of your charter bus, which Mr. Bone did. We're gonna feed you.
All right.
And then we're gonna give your school a check for, I don't know, $800 or $900. And he said, Coach, Coach Newman told me that not to play Shelbyville under no circumstances.
Right.
So don't call me back. So I waited about a week. I called him back. I said, hey, I've talked to my principal. We're gonna pay for your charter bus up here. And then we're gonna give you a check for $1,000. And then we're gonna feed you.
Right.
He said, Coach, not interested, not coming up there. I said, well, think about it. I'm gonna call you back next week.
Right.
So I called him back the next week and I said, Coach, we're gonna give you $1,000. We're gonna pay for your charter bus and we're gonna feed you. And then Mr. Bone is gonna meet you at the front door. When you walk in, he's gonna put 2 crisp $100 bills in your front pocket. And his response was, what time do we play? And he came up here and this gym was packed.
I was there.
And he was happy. I said, did you, Mr. Bone, see you? Yeah, Mr. Bone, see me. I'm very happy. Girls have been fed. We got a nice charter bus. And then we come in. But they ended up getting beat. That was '86. Oak Ridge upset them.
I got you.
They were the best team in the state, and Oak Ridge upset them on the semifinal night.
All right.
And Mr. Bone came, we were staying at, what's the hotel right across from Parthenon, Tony? I can't, it was probably the nicest hotel in Shelbyville then. I mean, in Murfreesboro then. But that's where we were staying. Mr. Bone came in that night. We were working on a scout report. He said, throw those scout reports away on Memphis Melrose. You're playing Oak Ridge.
Wow.
So.
Which facing Miss Pruden wasn't.
Yeah,
That wasn't
well,
fun.
that was Jennifer Azing.
Oh, was
which
it?
went
Okay.
on and which went on and signed with Stanford and went on and played in the Olympics, and we beat them that night. There's a great story, and it's concerning one of your teachers here, Beth Bobo, which is Beth Allen now. Right at the end of that game, everybody had been played except I had just put the subs in about 2 minutes to go because Oak Ridge was loaded. They were good, and Beth backed up Missy Donaldson, and I just put Beth in. And Beth had really been the point guard all year because Missy would she'd be coachable 1 minute, uncoachable the next minute. But anyway, during the tournaments, Missy played the whole time.
Right.
So I put Beth in with about 2 minutes to play, and we're up maybe 18, 19 points. And this is going to be our first state championship, my first state championship, but Shelbyville's third. And all of a sudden there was a timeout called on the floor. And I'm thinking, what? I didn't call a timeout, and nobody called a timeout.
Right.
You know, I call timeouts, and my players.
That's right.
And I look up, and here comes Beth running over there, and the kids come running over there. And Beth said Marla hadn't played. Marla Gordon.
Right.
Said Marla hadn't played. Said put her in for me.
Wow.
And she checked herself out. Beth did, and put Marla in to give her a chance to play in the state tournament. So I thought that was a pretty neat story. And Oak Ridge didn't like us calling timeout, but they got over it.
Right.
Coach, and we try to explain to like my kids what it was like to come in this gym, and there was no getting a seat. But to have 5 and 6 people deep all the way around the rails on the ends, have them sitting on the top of these towers, can you imagine what it would have been like for another high school team to come out of that locker room and see that? Because most people didn't play in front of anything close.
Well, I think a lot, Jeff. It was very intimidating to come in here at 5:30 and you see 800 people.
Yes, sir.
When our girls were warming up, we'd have 800 people.
Yes, sir.
You know, it was just an intimidating factor. And you'd go to other gyms, and before the other team got there, I know we played Pearl Cone. They were ranked like 2 or 3 in the state. We were ranked first, and James Stevenson was the coach there. And I probably shouldn't tell the story, but I will.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody was talking about this game. Matter of fact, we got a police escort from Shelbyville to Nashville. On the Bedford County escorted us to the line. Rutherford County picked us up, escorted us to the Davidson County line, and then Davidson County picked us up, escorted us into TSU.
Right.
All of that because of Garland King. Garland King and his relationship with the old sheriff that was in Davidson County for so long, they got that done. But anyway, we were going to play at Pearl Cone's gym. Then it was not Pearl Cone, it was Pearl. And so James Stevenson and me became very close friends early on. 1980, after we played him in the state, we became close friends because I knew we were going to have to play the Pearl Cones and the Memphis Melrose and the Craigmonts. Those teams were very, very athletic and to win state championships.
Right.
So we were the first school, Shelbyville was, to really start playing some of those inner city schools. Nobody would play them. They had to play themselves.
Right.
And I said, no, we're going to play them. So we're going to go into Memphis. We're going to go into Chattanooga. We're going to go into Nashville. We're going to play you.
Right.
And it did. Our fans and our kids, they loved it. Well, I told Coach Stevenson, I said, Coach, what time are you going to open the doors up? He said, well, we're going to open the doors up. Well, we play a 7 o'clock game, so we'll open the doors up about 6 o'clock. And I said, well, where's your people going to sit? What are you talking about? And I said, well, when you open the doors up at 6 o'clock, we're going to have 800 people there.
Right.
So if your gym only seats 800 people, where's your people going to sit?
Right.
I hadn't thought about that, Coach. What do you think we need to do? I said, I'd move this thing to TSU. Because we're going to bring 3,000 or 4,000.
Right.
You're going to bring 2,000 or 3,000.
Yes, sir.
So what we did, we moved it off of his home court.
There you go.
He didn't play at TSU. I didn't either, so now it was a neutral court.
Right.
So, and it was a heck of a game. We ended up beating him, I think, 7 or 8 points. And after the game, he said, you hoodwinked me. You got this off of our court. You won the game. And my response was, yeah, and you made a lot of money.
That's it. You got the pocket.
Because there was about, I think that night, there might have been 6,000 or 7,000 people
I'm
there
sure.
at the TSU facility to watch that game.
And Coach, it's not an exaggeration. When we would go to the state, and I'm not talking about just the finals, 3/4 of Murphy Center would be full of Shelby. I'm talking about in the cheap seats all the way down to the floor. I mean, when Shelbyville came out of that tunnel, 3/4 of that gym was standing up to cheer for him.
And it was our community. It was Bedford County. There was a lot of people from the Cascade, the Unionville area that came, that loved women's basketball.
Absolutely.
The passion for women's basketball in this county runs deep, and even when Unionville came to the state tournament just recently, I saw all kinds of Shelbyville
Absolutely.
people that were there supporting Unionville.
Right.
Even though you might be rivals with each other at the coffee shops here in town, but when you see Cascade or Unionville or Shelbyville succeed, you see supporters out of all those
That's
communities gravitate to
That's
that.
right. Absolutely.
Just like now with your football team, I'm hearing a lot about, the Shelbyville's football team, and when I get a chance to watch them on TV, I do, but you see, people in this community, Bedford County, they love success.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I laugh sometimes, over the last 10 or 12 years, of course, Rutherford County basketball has gotten very good in women's, but you'll have a Riverdale that'll have a 5-year stretch or a Blackman that'll have a 5, and not that I'm taking anything away from them, But you did this for 20 years. You know, at the top level for 20 years, that is a remarkable.
Well, you just had the
accomplishment.
system in, you had the program, you had the people in this, the people that supported us in this community financially. They gave us the best of the best. You know, we'd go somewhere, we'd go on a charter bus. You know, Garland King fixed a bus up, and the city bus,
City
they
bus.
would take
Yes, sir.
their people around in, but the only program that he would allow to ride in that bus would be the women's basketball.
Right.
Him and Robert Westner
Right.
became our trademark, and you could see them sitting in the stands with their red jackets
sir.
on, and our girls were treated like queens, and other people and other teams saw that, you know, and so
And for a basketball,
we
player,
might have went a little overboard, and when I say that, I'm talking about everybody here. You know, we might have went a little overboard. I know one time the celebration flew our team. We were one of the first high school teams to ever start traveling. 1984. It's when your USA Today started putting some emphasis on the girls basketball around the country. John Pitts, which was from Murfreesboro, was running that poll, and then at that point, I thought, at that time, I said, we got to get out and travel. We got to get out and play some of these teams at Pickerton and at Altoona, Santa Barbara. I just went on, you know, we went to New York to play Christ the King. We went to Raleigh, Durham to play, I think Carol Lawson was on one of those teams that we played there. And I was fortunate enough to have an administrator like Mike Bone and Don Boyd and Don Embry that believed in what we were doing, and a school board then that would be supportive. You know, a school board could come up and say, hey, you're not going to do that, and you couldn't do it. But they were supportive of that. And then you had a community, you had the celebration in the pencil industry here that was going big then, the pencil industry, and that they would, that, you know, you're going to go to Altoona, we're going to fly you to Pittsburgh, where you don't have to drive that distance, you know, or we're going to fly you over to Raleigh, Durham, we're going to fly you in to play Christ the King. And so our kids here, our high school kids, got to experience things that other high school kids didn't get to experience. Through that process, Nike, we were the first high school team that Nike ever signed. And so and you know, a lot of people then didn't know a lot about Nike. It was just really coming on the scene in the early 80s.
Right.
Michael Jordan is the one that pulled Nike out of the red into the black when they signed him out of North Carolina. Well, in 84, they signed a couple of high school teams, and one of them was Shelbyville Central High School.
Wow.
And so then they started, you know, when people saw us, we had all the Nike apparel, and nobody else had that.
That's right.
I mean, you couldn't even buy it. But they kept us in all of that. And of course, everybody was saying that was illegal. But really what they were doing is they were giving it to the school.
Right.
They wasn't giving it to the kids, which made it legal.
Right.
So now you got Nike schools everywhere. But we were the first.
There's one, it's 40 years later, or 30, I can tell this story now. About 3 of your girls in 1989 was dating 3 of the Vikings in Union. And
Didn't know that.
no, I know you did. And listen, I'll never forget this. My brother played for the 89 Viking team. And these 3 girls, I walk out to the lobby, little old Unionville gym, and 3 eaglettes are standing. I'm not even going to tell you the names now, afraid you call them this afternoon. And I looked over there and I said, what in the world? And they said, you don't tell Rick Insell. I said, like, I'm going to see Rick Insell. But anyway.
I think that's why the daddies were very supportive of me.
I guarantee you.
You know, I was always watching after their daughters when they couldn't. I was at a venue where I could watch after them at school.
Right.
And so
They never came to the gym. They'd stay in a side room over there and not be seen.
you couldn't do that today's time.
Absolutely.
But back then, you know, I was very. I didn't want. I always figured the boys would mess us up. You know?
And I agree. With 2 daughters, I 100% agree.
But Coach, if you were a basketball fan, I mean, this was the place to be. I can remember when USA Today would come out. You couldn't find one in Bedford County. People from here would drive to surrounding counties to get a copy to see Shelbyville at the top of the USA Today.
You couldn't get a
poll.
USA Today in this town.
I promise you
Everybody
could.
got them. You know, we played Morningside out of California. Lisa Leslie was on that team. Matter of fact, she's written a book, and she's got some statements in it that's wrong, because she didn't get beat by us, she got beat by Woodbury.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, there was some things probably said that she didn't like towards her and her team,
Right.
but it wasn't Bedford County people. It was the
Right.
Buchanan County, and I hate to throw them on the bus. But anyway, I'll never forget. I went down afterwards. Dr. Rich was with me and myself, and maybe Wendell Agnew, and there was 3 or 4 more. We went down to the Shelbyville Inn after the finals. We had just beat Woodbury in the finals,
Right.
and the other teams were staying that had moved in, had come in here from out of town. Were staying at the Shelbyville Inn. So we went down. We had a little room there, a hospitality room, where we went in and ate, and everybody socialized together, the coaches and things, and wives and things like that. And I had Dr. Rich and several more in there with me, Mike Wilhelm, and this coach came in from Morningside, said, "Hey," and he was a big guy. He's now a close friend of mine. James Anderson's his name, and he said, "Hey, we flew in here to play Shelbyville. We fly out tomorrow at 1:30. We're going to meet you and your girls in your gym at 9 o'clock, and we're going to play a game. You get the officials." And I never forget, I was looking up at him. I said, "Coach, if you'd wanted to play us, you should have won. But we ain't going to be here now. You're going to go back to California with your loss to Buchanan County. You're not going to give us a loss."
Right.
And so after that, we became close friends too. And then Dr. Rich and me headed down to the Sugar Bowl right after that. I think Tennessee was playing. David Howard had invited us. He had a suite down there. Invited Dr. Rich and Joyce and myself and Deb, and we drove down to the Sugar Bowl to watch the Tennessee play.
You know, amazing thing. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No,
One thing that I'll never forget. I know Chris Brothers used to be an official in this town, and Chris said he came here on a summer game, summer camp, and y'all had lost to Clark Range the year before. And he said he shows up here, he's going to officiate Clark Range versus Shelbyville in a summer game. So you walk in and you're caught in the shorts, you walk in. He said he opens them doors, and there's 1,000 people in here to watch a summer game because Clark Range had beat them the week before.
We played every summer camp. We played 11 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Right.
That gave everybody a chance in town to come for lunch break here. And I had Deb out here and my mother shuffling hamburgers because we used that money to finance our AAU programs.
There you go.
And then at night, they would come back, and at 7 o'clock, and that's whoever we'd always played, whoever the best teams were in the camp.
No doubt.
Didn't lose many summer camp games either. Matter of fact, we lost to Woodbury in summer camp. That story I was telling you about Morningside, and they beat Morningside. They had Julie Powell, we had Woosley, and that crew. And so after the game was over with, Robert A. was celebrating, and Robert A. I went to Woodbury High School, and Robert A. was a close friend of mine, and he was celebrating beating us, and he said, "Well, you don't seem to be too upset." I said, "No, you made us about 8,000. He said, how did I do that? Because I said, "We're going to play in the finals of the Night of Champions, and everybody in Buchanan County is going to come over here to see us play." And they did.
I guarantee you they did.
What you're talking about is the tournament, the best of US
Right.
tournament that was
Right.
here. And man, for a couple of years, you couldn't get in this place. And you brought in teams from everywhere. But the funny thing was, the best basketball was played
Middle
for
Tennessee.
the most part right in Middle Tennessee.
You have some great programs, still do. Tennessee, and I preach this all the time because I do coaching clinics all over the country, and people want to know about high school basketball in Tennessee. And high school basketball in Tennessee, and I've said this for years, for 40 years, is on the same level as football and men's basketball. Now, you don't have that in Alabama. Alabama, you got all football.
Right.
Georgia, you got all football and men's basketball. Florida, you got all football and men's basketball. But in Tennessee, high school girls basketball is on the same level as football and
I agree.
men's basketball. You have just as many people coming to see them play as you do the other two sports.
Right.
And if you go out to the rural areas, a lot of you rural areas don't have football.
Right.
Right.
And so their thing is girls basketball and men's basketball.
Right.
And so, that's the one thing I've always loved about our state is the fact that we give credit to the women, and our fans come out and see the women play.
All right.
Okay.
And before we leave, my son we were going over all of these numbers, and he texted me yesterday, and he said, Daddy, he said, I know you're going over all these high school numbers. He said, but Coach Insell's college numbers are more impressive than his high school numbers. And you have gone to middle, and you have built another program and done it the right way, obviously. And I think made everybody proud that knows you and appreciates what you did here, and that you could go on and do that at the next level at Division I.
Well, you've got one thing you got to have, Jeff, is you've got to have people that's going to support you.
Right.
Again, you go back. I had Mike Bone, I had Don Boyd, I had Don Embry, and they believed in what we were doing. I've got administrators now, bosses now, Sidney McPhee, Chris Massaro, Diane Turnham. They believe in what we're doing. They believe in the process. They want to give emphasis to women's basketball and to their women's sports. And I can say this, that not every university out there has that.
Right.
But I'm very fortunate that I've got someone like Dr. McPhee. Dr. McPhee and his wife go on the road with us. We're one of the few teams that they'll go on the road on bus trips and plane trips and support our women's basketball. I know last year we were playing Ball State in the NIT, and I look up and Dr. McPhee has flown in with the university plane, and he brings my wife and one of my sons up there, and some of the supporters on his plane, the university plane, to support our women. And you got to have that type of support. You got to have that, and believe it or not, we've got fans now at Middle Tennessee that are much like our fans here at Shelbyville.
Right.
They're going to be there. We play Sunday afternoon, play our first exhibition game. We'll probably have 3,000 fans there for an exhibition game.
Sure.
And but they're excited about the women's basketball program there. And I think what it is we inject ourselves and invest ourselves into the community there, much like we did here. One of the things I have our coaches do, and a lot of people don't understand, but Murfreesboro is one of the fastest growing places in the country.
Yes, sir.
You got more people moving into Murfreesboro than anywhere in the country. So, what I want to do is I want to get those people involved with what's going on there. Our university is a hidden gem. I could blow your mind right here at what's going on that campus as we sit and do this interview right now, and the programs that we got there that are the #1 programs are in the top 5 programs in the country at Middle Tennessee. And Middle Tennessee is the largest university in the state of Tennessee. We're not in the SEC, but when you look at what we're doing academic-wise and what we're doing on the athletic courts and the growth that we're having, the leadership that we got, there's things going on there that's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And I know that some of y'all's children and my children, and all 3 of my sons graduated from middle, and I'm sure my grandkids, which by the way go to public schools here in Bedford County.
Right.
And my family and Deb's businesses here, we're still invested in what's going on here. I love Shelbyville. I love Bedford County. I want to see this county grow. I want to see it succeed. I love the celebration. So, even though we live in Rutherford County and I work at Middle Tennessee State University, I've still got a lot of my heart lays right here in this community.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
And pretty cool that you have your son now coaching with you at middle. I think that's an
Well,
awesome
walk in
thing.
every day to be able to sit down and, he's not just I don't know what you would say, a hire because he's my son.
Sure.
The guy's
Oh my
unbelievable.
gosh.
He's probably the best male recruiter in the country.
Right.
He studies basketball 20 out of 24 hours a day. The energy he brings every day, I'm an old guy now, and the energy he brings into practice every day. We had a good staff anyway.
Right.
But to bring him in with Shalon and bring him in with Kim Brute, Kim and Shalon are 2, I think, of the best female recruiters in the country. It just made us a better basketball program.
I like those videos y'all are putting out because I sent one to my daughter who plays post at Martin Methodist, and you said it never fails. A guard wants to be a post,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a post wants to be a guard. Well, Lacey's fell in love with that 3-pointer, so I sent her that video. I said, "Listen to this man when he's talking to me."
They, Coach, I got that from Coach Summit. Matter of fact, she did one of our well, she did a couple of them. One of our basketball banquets at Shelbyville. She loved coming in here. And because this community respected the women's game. And Pat would come in and do our basketball banquets, and that's one of the things that she talked about one night here was all her posts wanted to be guards and guards wanted to be posts. Well, it's still holding true. She's not around, but it's still holding true.
Right.
We'd rather have them play defense, right? And dive after loose balls.
Well,
We can find somebody to shoot.
we're working on that right now. Now we got to find somebody to shoot. We held last year. We held 15 opponents to less than in the 40s for a Division I basketball
Yes, sir.
program. But
That's
we
why
lost
it's
a lot of those games because we couldn't score.
Well, you
So
told
now
them
we
the
gotta-
other day that you're on scholarship and knock down shots.
That's right.
Coach, you don't know how much we appreciate
Man,
you
we
coming
do.
and doing this.
Always a pleasure to come back home, and thank you guys. What y'all are doing is good for this community, and thank y'all very much. And I've watched you. I've watched your show. Yeah.
Serious journalism.
It is.
Yeah.
I could get Dan to
Yeah,
listen.
well, you're about one notch. You're getting closer to Mark Lamb and that bunch.
Oh, most easy.
Yeah.
We'll take that as a compliment.
Y'all, they got a pretty good following. Y'all
Yeah.
gather a pretty good following right
There
now. But yeah, y'all getting closer to them.
Well, Coach, we sure appreciate you coming today.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank y'all.